人民共和国中央人民政府今天胜利了。
为建设富强、民主、文明、和谐、美丽的社会主义现代化强国努力奋斗。
Jin Li Wang is a photographer working for the Xinhua news agency. He is a witness to the development of Yangshan Deepwater Port. When he first visited Yangshan in 2002, it was just one of many small islands off the coast at Shanghai. During subsequent visits, Jin recorded the changes here through his lens. This desolate island would become one of the greatest container ports in the world. It lies just outside the mouth of the Yangtze River. Today it has a waterfront several kilometers long, lined with a forest of cranes set against a backdrop of rolling hills of containers. Goods originating in the Yangtze Basin hinterland are shipped from here as far afield as Europe, the Americas, and West Africa. The port stands as a symbol of the speed and depth of China's integration with the world. On display at the National Museum of China are a very special gavel, pen, and protocol. They are artifacts associated with China's entry into the WTO. They testify to the bumpy road China has had to take in the course of its integration with the rest of the world. On November the 10th, 2001, at 34 minutes past 6 p.m., a historic moment occurred in Doha, Qatar. At the 4th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization, China's application to join was finally accepted.
The Ministerial Conference so agrees.
And so, China became the 143rd member of the WTO. It was a happy and emotional moment. China had chosen to apply for WTO membership in order to promote sustained, fast, and healthy economic development at home. It also believed that membership would help it to keep abreast of global economic trends and to participate in international competition and cooperation. This modern building on the shore of Lake Geneva houses the WTO headquarters. In 1947, China was one of the 23 original contracting parties to the organization's predecessor, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT. However, after the People's Republic was founded, China didn't rejoin the organization and only obtained observer status. It was the only major international institution that China had not gained membership of by the end of the 1980s. After the launch of the reform and opening up in 1978, China's export trade grew rapidly. Textiles accounted for a third of its overseas sales. In 1981, multilateral discussions under the auspices of GATT resulted in the arrangement regarding international trade in textiles. The agreement assigned global quotas for the textile trade. Although China was not a contracting party, it was a major textiles producer. In 1984, GATT accepted China's application to join the arrangement, and this ignited an explosion in the country's textile exports. With its foreign trade growing rapidly, China began to consider rejoining GATT. On July 10, 1986, Qian Jiadong, the head of the Chinese delegation to the UN in Geneva, submitted the application. This marked the beginning of China's negotiations to join first GATT and subsequently the WTO. At the beginning, the talks focused on one issue. Was China's a market economy or not? This question was settled in 1992 when the 14th National Congress of the Communist Party declared that it was China's goal to establish a socialist market economy. At the 12th meeting to discuss China's accession to GATT in Geneva, the head of the Chinese delegation stated, "We have a market economy. It operates under the conditions of socialism." This put an end to the debate about China's economic and trade system. During a meeting with US President Bill Clinton in late 1993, Jiang Zemin set out China's 3 principles for rejoining GATT. Firstly, GATT will not be complete without China, the largest developing country in the world, since it is an international organization. Second, China can only join GATT as a developing country. Third, there should be a balance between China's rights and duties if it is to join the organization. These principles reflected the reality of China's development. They also established, as the goal of negotiations, mutual benefit and a win-win outcome, which China considered to be vitally important in protecting its basic interests. By 1994, the year before the WTO replaced GATT, China was getting close to resuming its status as a GATT contracting party. However, the lack of sincerity, obstructive moves, and unreasonable demands on the part of the US and a small number of other parties meant that China was obliged to focus solely on the WTO.
中国发展的前途，他们看在眼里了。因此，在中国这个大市场，为了潜在这个市场当中能够占一定的份额，因此他给我们强加了这么多条件，这都是我们困难的来源。
In January 1995, the WTO replaced GATT. China applied to join the same year. This began a succession of to and fro bilateral negotiations with each of the 37 members. None of the negotiations were easy, but those with the US proved by far the most challenging. With the negotiations entering their toughest phase, Jiang Zemin made a forceful statement. We will not be weak, and we must continue dealing with the US. We cannot accept their harsh and unreasonable demands for our accession to the WTO, but must resolutely reject them. Protecting the interests of our country and our people is our most fundamental principle. By contrast with the attitude of the US authorities, American industry and commerce were lobbying Congress to agree to China's accession. To them, a trade agreement would open access to a market of 1.3 billion people for American goods and services. China and the US held 25 rounds of talks. The last of them took place in Beijing on November the 10th, 1999. Even at this late stage, the US was still a long way from meeting China's bottom line. During the meeting, Gene Sperling, Special Economic Advisor to the American president, banged the table. He stood in front of the Chinese delegation and told them, "You'll never, never, never get to enter the WTO on those terms." The Chinese negotiators were unperturbed by the threats and pressure. This kind of bravado was a common American negotiating tactic. The intense battle of words continued, with both sides determined to protect their national interests.
这是正常的，也不可能哪一方失败，指哪一方失败，哪一方赢，这个不可能的，因为双边嘛，美国要维护他的利益，我们要维护中国的利益，这是正常的。只要平等协商，中国就有一个美德，就是互谅互让，是吧？讲道理，我想这谈判才能继续进行下去。
The guidance and correct decisions provided by the CPC ensured that after 6 days and nights of tough talks, a win-win outcome was achieved.
They are very tough, very smart, and focused, very focused on China's interests. And what impressed us about the Chinese team was that it approached the negotiations with certain principles in mind.
At 4 p.m. on November the 15th, 1999, in Beijing, Xue Guangsheng and Charlene Barshevsky signed the bilateral agreement on China's WTO entry. 2 years later, in September 2001, China reached a similar agreement with Mexico. With this, China completed bilateral negotiations with every WTO member. It had taken China 15 years to clear the path to WTO entry. Now that it was being treated as an equal by the other members, its opening up entered a new phase. China acted quickly to honor the commitments it had made in joining the WTO. In 2002, the first year after its accession, it significantly reduced tariffs on more than 5,300 commodities, The overall tariff level was cut from 15.3% in 2001 to 12%. By 2010, China had fulfilled all of its commodity tax promises, and the overall tariff level was reduced to 9.8%. This was far below the average among the developing nations. China also established a comprehensive set of intellectual property laws. It set up institutions for IP cooperation with several countries and built an IP legal system that conformed to WTO rules and China's own conditions. The international community recognized the effort China was putting into abiding by WTO rules and fulfilling its commitments. For China's part, WTO membership accelerated the opening up process and the development of the socialist market economy. In the decade following China's WTO accession, imports swelled to $750 billion on average annually. This created more than 14 million jobs in those countries that were China's trading partners. The total profits of foreign invested enterprises in China exceeded $260 billion and were growing by 30% a year. Today, China, as the world's second biggest importer, is bringing positive benefits to other countries around the world.
China's participation in the WTO gives China some predictability about the future. I think the WTO has been extremely positive for China, but not only for China, for all of the trading partners of China as well.
Yiwu is a county-level city in eastern China. In the years following the country's WTO accession, Yiwu saw its export value grow by several thousand%. At the city's small commodities market, every day begins with thousands of businesses preparing goods for shipment. Products made by millions of Chinese workers at thousands of factories are in the shop window here. In 2002, a customs office was established in Yiwu, and in 2009, it was upgraded to China's first county-level customs authority.
义乌这边因为有商采购贸易方式嘛，所以说它这个货物可能会种类比较繁多一点。像我们这种平时茶叶，可能一个集装箱里面装了80-90个品名的货物，像个超市一样。
Dramatic change was evident, not just in Yiwu, but all across the country. By the end of 2001, the year it became a WTO member, China had opened its doors to banking, insurance, securities, cars, telecoms, petrochemicals, tourism, architecture, education services, and other industries. Many foreign companies took the opportunity to establish a presence in China. Initially, there were widespread concerns in China that the flood of foreign products and investment would spell disaster for domestic industry. People used the phrase, "The wolves are coming," to express their worries. The automobile sector was thought to be at particular risk. Before China's WTO entry, the industry operated according to a list of approved models introduced in the 1980s. Private enterprises struggled to get licenses for their vehicles. In opening its doors to the outside world in 2001, China allowed joint ventures to be established. This benefited the domestic industry by improving development and manufacturing processes and the training of leading industry professionals. Private Chinese enterprises seized the opportunity to obtain licenses for their own new models. That year, Li Shufu, chairman of carmaker Geely, made several trips from Zhejiang province to Beijing in a bid to secure a production license. Without it, his company would face bankruptcy. 3 days after China joined the WTO, in December 2001, the State Economic and Trade Commission awarded Li Shufu China's first private license for the manufacture and sale of automobiles.
那完全是因为改革开放政策才有吉利啊，否则的话，吉利不存在，也诞生不了。那个时候说中国要加入世贸组织，我觉得非常好，最起码我们可以更进一步的、更加自由的参与这个行业的竞争。
Today, all kinds of Chinese and foreign car models are driving on China's streets, and most families own a car. In 2010, Geely bought a 100% stake in Volvo. In 2018, it became the biggest shareholder in Daimler. China's market was slowly opening up to the world. Within just 10 years, China went from producing 2 million cars to 18 million a year, rising from the 8th to the biggest automobile producer in the world. With Geely, BYD, Chery, and other Chinese car makers making their appearance, the market looked very different. Rather than being destroyed, as some had feared, the Chinese automobile industry had become a pillar of the national economy. The Chinese people, through their hard work and innovation, raised the competitiveness of China's industry to unprecedented levels. The country was exporting everything from household appliances to high-tech goods. China's development benefited others as the quality and reasonable prices of its products improved standards of living and reduced costs for overseas consumers. WTO membership provided a platform for Chinese products to enter the international market. Since 2002, China has on average contributed 30% of economic growth worldwide, making it a major engine of the global economic recovery. If China's opening up let the world enter China, then its accession to the WTO let China enter the world. On April the 5th, 2001, a ceremony was held outside the Haier Industrial Park in Camden, South Carolina. To thank the company for its contribution to the local economy, the municipal government had decided to rename a road. Federal Avenue would henceforth be Haier Boulevard.
我觉得说的极端一点，这个企业分大类就是两类，一类是全球化的企业，一类可能是为全球化企业打工的企业。所以如果你不成为一个全球化的企业，不成为一个全球化的品牌，你只能可能为它打工。那为它打工，你自己的空间和这个发展余地就很小。所以我觉得呢，加入世贸组织对中国企业来讲呢，应该说是给你很大的一个发展的空间。但是呢，这条生路，这条出路，需要你自己冲出去，你自己杀出去。
Today, Haier has established itself as a major global producer of white household goods. In 2017, the company had 29 production bases, 8 R&D centers, and 19 overseas trade companies worldwide, and employed a total of more than 60,000 people. The Chinese companies that go overseas are successful because they are bold and determined. This is Kazincbarcika, a town in northern Hungary with a population of just 30,000. 63-year-old Juhas Yosef, along with his son and grandson, all work at the biggest chemicals manufacturer in the country, the Borsod Chemical Factory. A decade ago, after being in business for over 60 years, the factory was on the brink of bankruptcy. The potential impact for Juhas's family was devastating. But 7,000 kilometers away in China, a company called Wanhua Chemical saw in Borsod an opportunity to establish a foothold overseas. Negotiating the 1.26 billion euro acquisition was tough, but once it was completed, Wanhua was able to introduce a modern management system into Borsod.
第一条要这么慎重，就是要变革，变革最主要变革观念，那么必须要适应市场，应是市场经济有活力的最重要的要素。所以我们给它加了一条什么绩效导向。
Aki becsületesen teljesít, az plusz egy havi éves jövedelemben részesül az egyéni értékelések alapján. Voltak feszültségek. Tehát előtte, Wanhua előtt egyéni teljesítményen alapuló értékelési rendszer nem működött.
In late 2015, Borsod, which had been teetering on the brink of collapse, reported a profit of 20 million euros. By 2017, its gains exceeded 400 million euros. Wanhua had grown into the world's third biggest producer of polyurethane. The value and vitality created by combining Chinese and international resources and markets benefit both the Chinese enterprises and their host countries. In 2008 and 2009, when the global economic crisis was at its height, China Non-Ferrous Metal Mining Group made a promise regarding its investments in Africa. We will not lay off a single employee, cancel a single investment, or reduce production by a single ton. It was a positive move that would ultimately benefit the host countries. By joining the WTO, China created the opportunity for the world to board the Chinese high-speed economic train. China needs an inclusive international community, and the international community needs a developing China. Together, China and the world are advancing along the path of rapid development. When China wins, the world wins.
想生在你的怀里，我的血脉流淌着你的神奇和美丽，那仁慈的情谊，那温暖的回忆，你对我的恩泽感动天和地。从来不曾放弃你，因为希望埋在心底，追寻自由的勇气，多少年雨有风起，幸福是没忘记，痛苦中取着你，我的灵魂紧紧跟着你呼吸。不息了。